My name is Vishwanathan. I am from the Department of Computer Science and Automation at the Indian Institute of Science. Um, so today we'll start with the first lecture, and you will see a picture on the slide that is the uh, Ford assembly line, which started in 1930. That is exactly 100 years ago. And in fact, the Ford supply chain is the precursor to all the supply chain management, and it has basically revolutionized the industry in the United States and also United States economy. So I think what we are going to do in this series of lectures is uh, to learn about the supply chain management, the globalization, outsourcing, and all the things like that. But they are very important in my opinion. And this first lecture is an introductory lecture to supply chain networks. So we'll start with the introduction to the supply chain networks. I'll give some examples so that people are clear of the concepts. And also I'll talk about integrated supply chain networks, which are basically the integration of goods, movement of goods, finance, and information. And I'll just, if possible, try and end with the best practices in the supply chain networks. So to start with the first slide, as the introduction to the supply chain networks. What are supply chain networks? So if you look at this one, behind every product, there is a supply chain. In other words, supposing you take a car, or you take a cell phone, or you take a PC or a laptop. Behind that, there are basically several companies working together to produce that particular product. If you take the laptop, there is Intel-like thing which is making the processor. There is Lenovo kind of people who are making all the other parts, and there's somebody who is making the hard drive, and somebody else the mouse, and somebody else the screen, and so on. But everything is assembled and put together finally by somebody else. So even every product that you take, whether it is a food product, whether it is a car or this one, there is a supply chain. So it's very important we learn about the supply chain before, because the product that you get, the quality, the cost, and the usability are all basically influenced by the supply chain. So earlier, the network is fully owned by one company. For example, Ford in 1930, he used to own the iron ores. Then he used to own the ship to carry the iron ore to the shores. Then steel plants. He used to own the assembly plants. All, and finally, till the car goes to the dealer, Ford owned everything. But currently, it is the supply chain is not owned by one single person, but it is a network of companies. But these companies need not have to be in the same country, need not have to be speaking the same language, but they're all involved in the product design, manufacture, and delivery to the customers. So because there are several companies that are involved in the manufacture of this, then there are some complications that occur, because if you own the company and the company has a president or the owner who can dictate the terms, but in the case of a network of companies, it becomes difficult. The governance of the company becomes an important aspect. Well, there are examples of networks of companies producing products and delivering to the customers. They include in the auto industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, in the aerospace, electronics, computers, food, apparel, etc. So any product that you have, there are a network of companies behind that particular product. So components may be sourced from several countries, assembled in another country, and distributed to the customer all over the world. So you can see that when you are making a product, there are several countries involved, several companies that are involved. And so the network coordination becomes very important. So to give you an idea of what are supply chain networks, let me show you a diagram. This says their supplier. Although I said one supplier, there could be several suppliers here. And from the supplier, OEM means original equipment manufacturer, who does the basically gives the design, who orders from the components from the suppliers, who does the assembler. But from the supplier to the OEM, or original equipment manufacturer, there is what is called inbound logistics, or B2B logistics, business to business logistics, that is involved. And from the manufacturer to the products go to the distributor, from the distributor to the customer via the retail outlets. Now, there is a logistics that is involved because the material has to move from the manufacturer to the distributor. This can be by a truck, by rail, by air, whatever, and finally from the distributor to the retail outlet and the customers. So if you look at, this is called the forward supply chain, which goes from the suppliers to the manufacturer to the distributor and to the customer. But supposing once the customer gets the particular product, like an auto or a car or a computer or something, if you require servicing, there are service centers. And the customer has to take his product to the service center, and the service center may require spare parts from which they get it from either the manufacturer or the suppliers, and service it and return to the customer. So basically, if you look at this particular diagram, it shows you the forward logistics, the service logistics. In this, it is also called the reverse logistics. Let us look at some examples in this. For example, we have an industry supply chain where if you're a customer sitting at your PC, looking at your website, if you want to order, say, a laptop, and then you go to the website and you go to Dell or you go to Lenovo or any of the company websites and start ordering the process. Once you order, you pay the money through your credit card. Then if it is available in the warehouse, then it is supplied to you immediately. Well, supposing it's not available in the warehouse, then it has to be assembled. In other words, depending on the configuration of your PC or depending on the configuration of your car, it may have to be assembled to order, and it is assembled and then delivered. Supposing you have a build to order, in other words, you have special considerations, then you don't want the one that is either in the warehouse or it has with the standardized parts. Then the suppliers have to take your orders and they have to be assembled and delivered to you. So this particular diagram shows you the web ordering, the assemble to order, as well as build to order. There are three kinds of industry supply chains that are involved today. There is also, if you look at the agriculture supply chains, it starts with a farmer. Farmers are the suppliers of agriculture products. And this is also called plow to plate food supply chain. And from whatever is produced, they are transported to the mandis or the distribution centers by the people in carrying on the hand. And this is a kind of distribution center where these things are sold to the retailers. And once they are sold to the retailers, and the retailers are the street vendors who basically supply it to you, bring it to your house and supply it, and you cook it. So this is called the plow to plate supply chain. Now here you can see that the supply chain is ad hoc, and it goes from end to end, and there are no basically nobody who is orchestrating the relationship among the supply chain actors, which means if a retailer wants to get something, he goes to basically the mandi or the distribution center, and from there and so on. So basically the actors are not connected in this. Whereas if you look at the previous industry, the supply chain network, either when you are buying automobiles or when you are buying a PC or something, the network, the suppliers and the manufacturers and the dealers and the retailers are very well connected, and even the customer can transact directly with the particular with the suppliers and so on. So, but here this is the kind of this is the kind of how to play food supply chain network, and this is why people say the Indian agriculture food supply chain network is sort of fragmented and inefficient. It's inefficient because it's not connected to among all the players are not connected, and there is no ordering system here. So if you take a global supply chain network where, for example, if you take a PC or a car, then there are these what are called the suppliers. They are either in India or in China, and they are what are called inbound logistics players who basically take the material from the suppliers and supply it to the manufacturers. So in the manufacturing hubs, it can be China, Eastern Europe, or this one. Basically, in the manufacturing hubs, they assemble whatever they get from the suppliers, and then it goes to the industry inventory hub or the dealers or the distribution centers, and finally it goes to the retail. So the retail is the one that is in the US. Most of the global supply chain networks, the retail is either in Europe or in USA, and the tail end of the supply chain, that is the suppliers, are in Asia. And there is a lot of logistics that is involved because there is the material movement that is involved from the suppliers to the assemblers to the distribution centers and to the retailers. And in the global supply chain network, there is a lot of material movement that is involved, and the logistics players called the third-party logistics players, UPS, DHL, and several others have a large role to play. So if you look at global supply chains, there are two kinds of globalization. One globalization is what is called horizontal foreign direct investment. FDI means foreign direct investment. MNC means multinational companies. So in a horizontal foreign direct investment, MNCs duplicate the same activities in multiple countries. In other words, if they have a factory to manufacture a car in Japan, they will just come to India and then have the same kind of factory here. And that means they require the same components either imported from Japan or some other place, or they have to duplicate even the suppliers here. But on the other hand, what is more prevalent nowadays is what is called vertical foreign direct investment, where firms are located in different stages of production in different countries. In other words, the Intel chip is made in Malaysia, and it is the power supply is made in India, and the monitor is made in Thailand, and all these are brought to a particular country where it is all assembled and which is close to the customer, and they are delivered to the customer. So vertical FDI is basically components or assembled. Components are made in various countries and they're assembled in a particular country. This is the regular outsourcing phenomena that happened in the vertical FDI. So the basic difference between the two is the horizontal integration always occurs at the same stage in the supply chain. In other words, if you are manufacturing something in Japan, you will come and do the same manufacturing process, the same manufacturing this one in India. But on the other hand, in the vertical integration always occurs in the stages of the supply chain. What are the stages? The stages is the suppliers, that is they make components, auto components, or the assemblers, they assemble things, the logistics providers, they move the material from one company to another, and so on. So basically the vertical integration or vertical globalization is the one that is happening nowadays, and it is much more interesting to study the various optimization and performance studies in vertical globalization. This particular slide is an important slide because it shows you what is called a multi-tier supply chain network. We have a OEM or the manufacturer, and he assembles the product from several sub-assemblies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 to n, and each of these sub-assemblies manufacturers require some components, and they get it from tier 2 suppliers, and each of the tier 2 suppliers, they require components and materials, they get it from tier 3 to n suppliers, and finally the supply chain ends with the raw material suppliers. So there are several levels of the supply chain here, but usually people, the manufacturers, worry about tier 1 suppliers, thinking that tier 1 suppliers will worry about tier 2 and tier 3 and so on. But one should remember that even if tier 3 supplier is located in some place like Bangladesh or in Japan, and if there is a tsunami there, that affects the entire supply chain. So this is called, that is why it is important to map the multi-tier supply chain, where all your players are there. Supposing a supplier in one of the countries his bank fails, so he cannot supply the products because he does not have funds. So then the supply chain also gets affected. So it's important to monitor the economic, physical, and other environmental factors of all your suppliers, and have a map of all this, some kind of an Excel sheet where all your players which you are supplying to you are and their locations and their addresses, their banks are all known to you. So here, supposing you are a manufacturer who manufacture dolls, like a Barbie doll or something. It's very important the Barbie doll, which is used by the children, it has the safety features. So supposing they paint on the Barbie doll to show the color, and the paint has lead content in it. If the lead content is more, then if the child licks the paint and puts the Barbie doll in the mouth, then it could be poisonous. So there are several accidents like this that have happened in the future. So it's important that the multi-tier supply chain is mapped well. And of course, in the forward direction, you have the distributors and finally the customers through the retailers. So this is an important diagram for supply chain researchers.